Thank you very much. Really looking forward to speaking with you. And I see so many familiar faces or names, actually, of people that I spent the last 4 years working collaboratively with to really grow and evolve Edmonton's innovation ecosystem. So it's nice to see many of you again. I'll start with a little bit of my background for those of you that don't know me. So born and raised in Edmonton, I've lived here my entire life, but the majority of my career has been spent in global organizations, Fortune 500 organizations. And so I've had the opportunity to lead teams in 7 countries and 14 time zones, and really have a depth of knowledge of innovation ecosystems around the world, as well demonstrated by my current role as the co-chair of the Startup Genome Advisory Council. I'll tell you a little bit about Startup Genome if you don't know, but they're a global organization, and I'm one of 3 Canadians that sits on this advisory board that makes innovation policy recommendations to governments. And so this is really about how governments can understand the role and opportunity that they have in investing in our future economy. So it's really interesting work that I'm doing right now, in addition to running for mayor. So in 2015, I was working for Intuit, makers of QuickBooks and TurboTax, and hopefully many of you are familiar with this organization. And they presented a very difficult decision for me. It was continue to work at Intuit, but I had to move to Silicon Valley, or leave Intuit and remain in Edmonton. And I made the difficult choice I know many people have to choose this city over a career move. Do not regret this choice. I love this city and believe in its potential. Potential for our future. But I really had that opportunity through that experience of working around the world to do a comparison of Edmonton to many global leading cities. And there were some ways that I felt our city was being left behind. We weren't moving quickly enough. We really weren't a competitor when you think about the global economy. And so in 2016, actually, I joined the Edmonton Economic Development Corporation. I really wanted to fuel our economic engine, and very quickly came to the realization that we were ignoring our local economy, that we really weren't investing in our future economy. And a lot of the things that we were talking about were about attracting global investment or attracting companies to Edmonton rather than paying attention to what's being created right here. And so at the time, my division was called Urban Economy. And through global best practices, what we did was that we changed the mandate of the organization, renamed the organization Innovate Edmonton, focused on collaborating with the community to create the best possible environment for technology, innovation, and startup and scale-up company growth here in Edmonton. Some early work of Innovate Edmonton really was, number one, the recognition that we were cutting off a big source of investment with no direct flight to San Francisco. So I worked directly with our current mayor and industry to go down to Silicon Valley to secure seat investments, worked with the companies here in Edmonton to also secure commitment to having this flight return to Edmonton. We were successful. The Air Canada direct flights to San Francisco returned. Our current flight situation is a whole different story today, and an industry that we are reliant on as a tech and innovation ecosystem. The second thing we did with Innovate Edmonton was really used Mars in Toronto as inspiration for what a good incubator and accelerator program could be. And through that work, we inspired the transformation of the 103rd Street Center downtown here in Edmonton, where many of our tech companies are now housed. The third thing that we did is we recognized that Edmonton and Calgary on their own are tiny. and that the only way that we were going to make progress or catch attention of whether it was our provincial government, federal government investors, or other investors around the world was for us to really combine forces. And so I was the co-founder of the Alberta Innovation Corridor partnership. And then finally, really proud to have ERIN hosting this, helping to support this event, because I was one of the founding members of the ERIN 2.0 that really brought together a larger group of communities and allowed us to deliver more and expanded programming to all of you. So after all of that work, founding Innovate Edmonton, writing the innovation strategy that had a 10-year vision of contributing to the creation of 1,000 high growth tech companies, it did seem to me that my opportunity for impact, really, I wanted to have a broader impact, not only on tech and innovation, but in our city. And so in October 2020, I announced my intent to run for mayor. Since then, I have had thousands of conversations with Edmontonians to form the vision for the city is to build a city that works for all Edmontonians. And when I say a city that works, it's all the way from the very tactical of using technology for situations like being able to tap on or tap off transit, all the way to the most inspirational of Edmonton and Alberta being a leader in technology and innovation. So I have three main platforms. The first is place, is to create a city that we can all be proud of. Getting back to high quality infrastructure, well-maintained infrastructure, so that we can build a beautiful, well-maintained, welcoming city, not only for residents that choose to live here, but those that are looking to visit our city. The second is partnerships. The City of Edmonton has a very clear mandate in the role that we have around infrastructure like transportation systems, transit services, parks and recreation facilities. There's a lot of things that are not within our mandate, and we're currently competing with not only private industry in some areas, but other orders of government and nonprofits. So it's time for us to get back to what our job is and be a really good partner to others. We need to repair our relationship with the provincial government. As a matter of fact, we currently have a very constrained relationship that is preventing investment in this city. And then the third is potential. It is our future economy. We are a startup city. More than 90% of the businesses in this city are small and medium, and we're an academic and talent powerhouse. We're leaders in research and innovation, and nearly 10% of the population in this city is enrolled in post-secondaries. And I want to combine these two factors so that those students can believe that Edmonton is a place for them to find a job. So my vision for innovation and technology in our city remains steady with the innovation strategy that I wrote with Innovate Edmonton, that has 5 key long-term strategies around leading the continuation and growth of our innovation ecosystem. Number 2 is that we ensure that we are scaling and expanding startup programming events and initiatives. Third is that we deliver new scale-up program. We know that that's been a gap in our city for some time, with a focus on talent, mentorship, and investment. And then fourth, that we engage Edmontonians to play an active role in our innovation ecosystem, whether it be through mentorship or investment. And then fifth is, how do we position Edmonton as a top city for technology innovation? So strategy remains true. It is Innovate Edmonton's job to carry out the execution of this business plan. I'm pleased that Innovate Edmonton seems to be now getting their legs underneath them. But as a city, I don't believe we are investing enough in our innovation programming. Right now, Innovate Edmonton only has $5 million of investment from our city, and then a $5 million investment fund. We know leading cities are putting more investment into our future economy. And so that's one of my commitments, is really, how do we make sure that we are setting ourselves up for success and investing the right amount of money in our future? So I'm looking forward to questions. I'm sure that you have a number of them and really excited to hear what's on your mind.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Cheryl. I would like to ask if those two that hadn't had the time to ask him those questions earlier, if you'd like to put your questions back in the chat and ask them also to Cheryl, you can go ahead. In the meantime, Michael, if you would like to unmute yourself and ask your question, you can go ahead. Michael, you are muted.
Sorry about that. Cheryl, thanks for the talk today. I'm wondering about climate change. It's really both a local and a global issue where we need linear and encompassing solutions to obtain net negative emissions. And this has been very difficult to enforce uniformly. How would you deliver a low carbon agenda here for Edmonton that's bearable for the local economy? Any solutions on that front?
Yes, I do have some ideas, and I'm glad that you said bearable on the local economy, because we know that energy poverty is a real and concerning issue. And so having energy become unaffordable for everyday Edmontonians is definitely a situation that we don't want to find ourselves in. So when it comes to the city's role in energy and our role that we can make in climate commitments, there's some things that are within our direct control. The buildings that we manage and own, the way that we design our city, like our city streets and roads, and how we use shading, how we are managing stormwater ponds. And then there's how we can be a supporter for the choice of Edmontonians. And so we have some thoughts around the city's opportunity to actually invest in our energy infrastructure, which will give Edmontonians more ability and choice for the energy decisions that they make. I've seen other candidates and other leaders talk about ideas like putting Tesla charging stations on every block, but the reality is that we know that our power grid actually cannot sustain that kind of new energy demand. And so the city's biggest opportunity then is if we invest in the infrastructure that will allow our nearly 1 million City of Edmonton residents to be able to make more thoughtful choices, even such as solar power and how they might even be able to invest power back into the grid. Here's what I'm confident in, though. We are energy leaders in this province, and we have some of the smartest minds in academic research and inventors and creators that I'm confident that if we create the right environment for you to actually be able to apply some of these new innovations, we will continue to be leaders in green energy.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Cheryl. John, I do see that you have a hand up. If you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask Cheryl.
Hi, Ms. Cheryl. My name is John Yao. I'm the founder of a startup company in Edmonton. I just want to mention to you that I had a very bad experience with you when you was a vice president of the Edmonton Innovation. Because at that time we were trying to rent the space from the facility under your management in the research park, but eventually, after so many emails and requests, eventually you just turned down without any reasonable reason. So I don't see how you are going to support the innovation community when you are mayor, because the experience with you is not pleasant for us, and I don't feel that you are supporting us at all. So I just feel that it's not fair you treat us and you are not supportive.
John, I'm sorry to hear that, and I'm disappointed to hear that if you were declined access into a program at the Advanced Technology Center at the Edmonton Research Park. I'm sorry that we weren't clear in perhaps why your company didn't fit into the program. So I do apologize for that. I'm happy to have another conversation with you, John, about your specific situation offline. Happy to put my email address into the chat so that you can reach out directly and we can talk more about your experience.
Right, awesome. Thank you, Cheryl. I do actually have a question myself for you. So after the last year or so with post-secondary institutions losing a lot of their funding, especially because this is so important for not only diversifying the economy, but supporting the young people in our city and furthering research opportunities and kind of helping put Edmonton on the map. What specific plans do you have for supporting university institutions and our students of the city?
Yeah, thanks for that question. It is critical. Not only for the reasons that you described around our future economy or what we know about our future economy and our current academic strengths, we also know that when people are choosing a city to live in, and our city has one of the youngest demographics in our country, there's two factors that they look at: the state of the health system and the state of the education system. And so these are both opportunities or current strengths that we have that are at risk. And so the city has a core role in advocating to the provincial government. And in my opinion, it's our responsibility to be strongly advocating for investment in those two areas specifically. But the only way we're actually going to have voice with our provincial government is if we combine forces with Calgary. And so this was proven in the last work that we did with Innovate Edmonton. It was challenging for us to work with the current government. And so the only way that we began to get attention was when Calgary and Edmonton began going to the meetings together. And instead of me advocating for 400 companies and Terry and Calgary advocating for their 500 or 600, we collectively brought the bulk of the ecosystem. And so I announced a number of weeks ago the expansion of the original Alberta Innovation Corridor partnership to be called the Alberta Economic Corridor Partnership. And so this is about Edmonton and Calgary coming together to identify their 2 or 3 advocacy points for our provincial government. And on my list, as I said, health and education.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much. If anyone has a question for Cheryll, feel free to put a quick one in the chat. Otherwise, in a couple of seconds here, we'll move on to Michael.
Can I ask one question? I'm Piyush.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Well, thank you thank you to both speakers. You know, it's interesting. I think my question comes directly to the very critical part of innovation in health sector, where if you have to run a clinical trial, it basically needs lots of money and time also to get the data. Lots of venture capitalists, you know, they somehow want quick return on the projects, and which is not possible in this case. And if you apply for funding, you have to wait for the time, and funding companies, they don't, agencies, they don't give you that much money. So what's your plan to implement those kind of support to the companies here in Edmonton, basically? Thank you.
Yes, well-known situation, and it was one of the most important, or that was one of the reasons that the Edmonton Research Park was originally set up, was because we knew that there were companies and research projects that did have much longer evolution or growth cycles. And so we need to recognize that there are more complex systems, and we are a health leader in this city, that will require longer term investments. Those investments need to come from all 3 orders of government, not only from the city of Edmonton, but from the province. But it is the federal government actually that also provides a number of investments into that space for these larger or longer term innovations. And so that's, I would say that our role is to make sure that we're collaborating with other orders of government to have the investment that we need here locally.
Thank you, Cheryll.